The 9 actresses who were truly malevolent were revealed by Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball was America's favorite redhead on television for more than 20 years. She became the most powerful woman in Hollywood history thanks to her contagious laugh and rubber-faced comedy, which delighted millions of people. But beneath that endearing facade and trailblazing career was a tough businesswoman with an unwavering sense of morality. Lucille was more than simply a comedian. As the first woman to run a major studio, her one word had the power to make or break careers. According to a former dissolute executive who collaborated with Ball for more than 10 years, Lucy had no patience for phonies or brutality. She secretly maintained a mental list of actresses she thought were genuinely awful people. Women with glitzy outward personas concealed what Lucy referred to as souls of pure frost. Ball was more open about the superstars she had secretly hated over her career in her later years. A troubling picture of adored celebrities who were monsters behind their meticulously constructed public personas is painted by the anecdotes she shared with close friends. The most upsetting were Ball's disclosures about a great actress who, although she seemed dignified and polite in interviews, Lucy discovered verbally abusing a young wardrobe assistant to the point where the girl fled the business. The well-known TV personality, whom Ball said was more dangerous than any Hollywood male because her charming on-screen demeanor served as the ideal cover for what Lucy referred to as a career of planned damage. These weren't only demanding celebrities or challenging personalities. Ball claims that these were truly evil individuals who were shielded for decades by the industry as manipulators and destroyers, all while posing as celebrities and gifted individuals. First, however, we must comprehend why Ball's most vehement distaste and the private altercation that validated all Lucy's suspicions about Hollywood's Ice Queen were caused by the first name on her list. Why didn't you give me a call? Philadelphia isn't the end of the world, so you may just have. The icy-blooded Hollywood queen, Joan Crawford. In 1971, audiences witnessed the polite Hollywood icon they had admired for decades when Joan Crawford made an appearance as a guest on Here's Lucy. Crawford personified classic Hollywood glitz with her flawless posture, spotless beauty, and honed charisma. However, other Delu employees claim that Crawford's off-camera conduct showed a completely different side of himself. Years later, Ball is said to have told her longtime hairstylist, "She was one of the coldest people I've ever met, like conversing with a lovely statue that is empty. She was so glamorous. There was only ice underneath." Even before Crawford reached the studio, her appearance started to cause issues. Her requests included lighting specifications so specific that, decades later, the technical director of the show still retained the 5-page memo in his archives. According to a former producer, everything had to be exact. The height of her mark on the stage, the angle of her chair, and even the studio's temperature, it was precisely 68 degrees, not 67 or 69. Even though the event had award-winning makeup artists on staff, Crawford brought her own cosmetics crew when she finally showed up 3 hours before taping. However, Crawford's treatment of people differently according to their importance was what really showed her character. An onstage stagehand remarked, "She practically bowed to Lucy on that day." Crawford, however, lost it when a teenage wardrobe assistant brought in a dress that had a barely noticeable wrinkle. Several witnesses claim that Crawford went on a rant so savage that employees in the corridor froze in disbelief. She allegedly called the assistant, a 22-year-old new employee, a worthless little nothing, and advised her to look for employment cleaning restrooms where standards would obviously not be a problem. Crawford requested that the young woman be dismissed after she ran away in tears. Tension arose during the taping because Ball's producer refused. However, Crawford's handling of employees wasn't the only unsettling feature of her appearance. It was the methodical way she changed things as soon as the cameras started. One producer noted that she was like a machine posing as a woman. She had practiced every response, every giggle, every unplanned moment. There was nothing real. Crawford would instantly lose her smile during breaks and sit in stony silence, talking to no one, only to come back to life as soon as the red light returned. Ball, who had a friendly rapport with crew members, was obviously offended by Crawford's actions. She allegedly told her co-star Gail Gordon after the performance, "I've performed with department store mannequins that had more genuine emotion." Ball was unsurprised when, years later, Christina Crawford's biography, Mommy Dearest, exposed Joan's alleged maltreatment of her adoptive children. Close acquaintances claim that she only nodded and remarked, I saw who she really was in those few hours. I believe every word. If Ball was startled by Crawford's calculating coldness, she was even more unnerved by her next adversary. Talent squandered via self-destruction that caused harm to all those around it. This may seem like a startling addition, but I am Judy Garland, the dazzling diva who left devastation in her wake. Ultimately, Judy Garland is regarded as one of Hollywood's most cherished artists, a helpless person shattered by the brutality of the studio system. In a public statement, Lucille Ball praised Garland's extraordinary talent as a performer. Those closest to Ball, however, said that in private, Ball had a more nuanced opinion of Garland, one that recognized her brilliance but refused to justify the chaos her actions caused for everyone in her vicinity. Lucy adored Judy's talent, an old Ball buddy disclosed. However, she was brutally honest about the harm that Judy's addictions and unreliability caused to scores of innocent people. Lucy used to say, "Talent doesn't give you the right to destroy other people's careers." Ball and Garland had known each other since their early days at MGM, crossing paths repeatedly throughout their careers. While Ball was known for her ironclad professionalism and perfect reliability, Garland became infamous for the opposite. Showing up hours late, missing appearances entirely, or arriving too impaired to perform. What truly bothered Ball wasn't Garland's personal demons, but how those demons impacted the hard-working people around her, the crew members who waited hours for her to appear, the producers who faced financial ruin when she didn't show up, and the less famous co-stars whose careers suffered from cancelled productions. Lucy once told me about visiting a set where Judy was supposed to be working, recalled a former television director who worked with Ball in the 1970s. The entire crew had been there since 5 a.m. Judy finally showed up at 2 p.m., performed brilliantly for 30 minutes, then declared she was too exhausted to continue. An entire day's production lost. And Lucy said the worst part was watching the producer fire 3 crew members the next day because the production was now over budget. What made this especially personal for Ball was her own history. She had clawed her way up from B-movies and radio, surviving career setbacks through sheer determination and reliability. The idea that someone would waste greater talent through self-sabotage struck her as almost criminal. Judy was always late, always a mess, and someone always got fired for it, Ball reportedly said during a private dinner in the late 1970s. When she finally appeared, she was magical, but the number of bodies around her was real, so everyone just kept making excuses. Ball's fundamental view of Hollywood, that even the biggest stars have obligations to the hundreds of lesser-known individuals who enabled their success, was mirrored in this seemingly harsh viewpoint. Ball openly acknowledged his grief over the passing of a tremendous talent when Garland passed away in 1969. In private, she saw Garland's story, according to acquaintances, as a heartbreaking illustration of how addiction not only destroys the addict but also causes harm to many others. Lucy's friend clarified that she had empathy. Although Lucy acknowledged that the studio system had harmed Judy, she also refused to act as though this justified Judy's harming other people. Ball's next adversary showed something similarly concerning to her, even while Garland symbolized talent wasted via self-destruction. European refinement disguised as calculated insincerity. I had no idea what a lesbian was. I was only Joseph's young wife. God, oh God. On 2 legs, Zsa Gabor exudes fake grace. Zsa Gabor was a popular talk show star who made numerous appearances in the 1960s and 1970s thanks to her glitzy look, unique accent, and flirty demeanor. The audience witnessed an endearing, exaggerated personality who, for laughter, emphasized her Hungarian heritage and numerous marriages. Ball noticed something very different, what she referred to as phony elegance on 2 legs, in private. According to a former writer who was close to Ball, Lucy couldn't stand phony people and believed Zsa to be the most phony of them all. Depending on what she wants, her accent might become thicker or weaker, she used to remark. She is not real. Not her name, not her hair, nor her jewelry. Ball's distaste was a result of several interactions with Gabor during their careers, including one particularly illuminating episode at a charity function in the late 1960s. Several witnesses claimed that Gabor played up her Dling character for photographers when she arrived, dripping in diamonds and furs. However, Gabor apparently changed when the cameras stopped recording, yelling at volunteers, requesting preferential treatment, and publicly lamenting the need to attend this dull event. Lucy watched the whole thing, said a guest who eventually collaborated with Ball, even though she was compensated for her appearance. Before turning back and treating the volunteers like servants, she witnessed Zatsa beguiling the photographers. What particularly annoyed Ball about Gabber was the way her actions impacted other women in the profession. As Lucy later stated, "That woman isn't just playing a role, she's living a lie and doesn't even know the difference anymore." Ball felt that Gabber's entire act, marrying for money, showing off affluence, and exaggerating her European exotic appeal, reinforced the worst prejudices about women exploiting sexuality rather than talent at a time when female performers were struggling to be accepted as professionals. Lucy's career was built on hard work and comedic genius, the former writer added. She was angry that Gabber had based hers on marrying wealthy men and blinking her eyelids. When Gabber was arrested for slapping a Beverly Hills police officer in 1989, years after her death, Ball's opinion appeared to be confirmed, demonstrating that her volatile diva character was more than just an act and represented true entitlement. Ball was irritated by Gabber's calculating facade, but she was even more troubled by her next challenging contemporary. True skill tainted by unbridled anger. Me. You're repulsed. You wager. Davis, the gift that was unable to restrain its brutality. Unquestionably, one of the best actresses of the heyday of Hollywood was Bette Davis. With performances that shaped American cinema and a career spanning decades. Those who knew Lucille Ball say that while her on-screen fury was renowned, it paled in comparison to Davis's off-screen conduct. According to a longtime acquaintance of Ball's, Lucy greatly liked Betty's skills. However, she once claimed that Bette Davis's brutality was the only thing greater than her brilliance and that her gaze could melt celluloid. Throughout their careers, the two Hollywood icons crossed paths many times. According to reports, their most illuminating meeting took place at an industry dinner in the middle of the 1960s. Several guests claim that Davis spent the evening disparaging waitstaff, interjecting during other speeches, and making offensive comments about co-workers who weren't there. Ball reportedly told her host, "I'd rather keep my skin intact tonight," when she was invited to join Davis's group while seated at a nearby table. In Ball's opinion, what made Davis especially challenging was not only her renownedly sharp tongue, but also the way she used it as a weapon against those who were unable to defend themselves. Davis gained notoriety for scolding junior performers, makeup artists, and costume designers, bringing them to tears, and occasionally threatening to fire them if they didn't live up to her high expectations. According to a former Dea staffer, Lucy once heard Bette yelling at a young actor on a nearby soundstage. In one scene, the unfortunate girl had mispronounced a single syllable. Asking if she had learned to read in a reformatory, Bette tore her to pieces in front of the entire crew for 5 minutes. Lucy objected to the director about permitting such behavior because she was so disgusted. Ball was especially troubled by Davis's actions because they were the result of someone who truly possessed exceptional talent. In contrast to some challenging celebrities who used exaggerated personalities to make up for their lack of talent, Davis had genuine talents that, in Ball's opinion, made her actions even less justified. According to her buddy, Lucy believed that the truly great should uplift others rather than bring them down. As she once said, "When you reach the top, you have a responsibility to be better, not worse." Ball respected Davis's contributions to film even though she privately disliked her actions. Ball participated when Davis made an appearance on a television special honoring women in entertainment, but reportedly asked that they not be booked for any one-on-one meetings. It wasn't that Lucy was afraid of Bette, the friend explained. No matter how talented they were, she simply saw no use in hanging around with someone who enjoyed making other people miserable. Ball's subsequent challenging contemporary reflected something similarly distressing to her, whereas Davis represented unadulterated genius tainted by brutality. Emotional distance that even affected family members. "Excuse me, but when I'm near you, my hands shake." The ice queen who left her son behind is Barbara Stanwyck. One of the most admired actresses in Hollywood is Barbara Stanwyck. A 4-time Oscar nominee renowned for her professionalism and adaptability. She was ideal for anything from westerns to film noir because of her strong, no-nonsense on-screen persona. But according to Lucille Ball's intimate friends and family, Stanwyck's emotional distance wasn't merely a character on film. In real life, it was what made her unique, and Ball found it extremely unsettling. According to an ex-Desilu executive, Lucy allegedly claimed that Stanwyck frightened her. The two actresses collaborated briefly in the early days of Desilu Productions, and Ball reportedly left the experience feeling unnerved by Stanwyck's ability to switch emotions on and off like a faucet. She described Barbara as like a statue you'd never dare touch. Perfect, polished, and completely cold. Several reports claim that Stanwyck may be crying during a tragic scene and then, as soon as the director ordered cut, shift the conversation to lunch alternatives, leaving little evidence of the earlier emotion. According to the executive, Lucy was an actor who took inspiration from genuine emotions. Barbara's method seemed to her almost inhuman, as if she were witnessing someone pretending to be a person instead of being one. The relationship, or lack thereof, between Stanwyck and her adopted son, Dion, was what really solidified Ball's unfavorable opinion. Hollywood insiders claim that Dion was adopted in 1932 by Stanwyck and her then-husband, actor Rex Harrison. Stanwyck raised him as a single mother following their divorce, but as he grew older, their relationship reportedly soured. Ball, who was a loving mother herself, found Stanwyck's decision to completely cut off communication with her son inexplicable. According to a close friend, Lucy couldn't understand how anyone could turn their back on their child. Ball's personal life was echoed in her words, "Whatever problems you have with your kids, they're still your kids. Walking away isn't an option." For the benefit of their kids, she and Desi Arnaz kept up a functional relationship and continued to be actively involved in their lives even after their divorce. Ball saw Stanwyck's ability to cut off all contact with her son as proof of a serious emotional flaw. After meeting Stanwyck at an industry gathering in the 1970s, Ball reportedly told a friend that although she portrays powerful women on screen, she moved everyone, even her own family, to tears off screen. Ball was worried by Stanwyck's emotional distance, but she was considerably more troubled by her next challenging contemporary. Erratic conduct that veered from strange to harmful. "I wouldn't even go so far as to try to exact revenge on someone as ridiculous as you. Bankhead, Tallulah. Hazardous and uncontrollable." One of the most vibrant figures in entertainment during the 20th century was Tallulah Bankhead. A colorful actress who was well known for her outlandish antics on and off stage, deep voice, and sexual openness. Audiences enjoyed her humor and eccentric demeanor, which allowed her to push boundaries. Those who worked with Bankhead behind the scenes said that her wild conduct wasn't only amusing, it was also erratic, disruptive, and occasionally dangerous. When Bank made an appearance as a guest star on the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour in 1957, Lucille Ball learned about this firsthand. What should have been a simple guest appearance became a production nightmare, according to many crew members. A former Desilu production assistant who saw the filming described Tula as unruly, obscene, and frequently drunk on set. Since she was well known, Lucy gave her a chance, but she immediately regretted it. She was poisonous in addition to being crazy. According to reports, the issue started during rehearsal when Bank showed up noticeably inebriated, unable to recall her lines, and prone to straying from the script with unsuitable improvisation that had no place in a family television show from the 1950s. The production assistant reported how she would abruptly begin using profanity or making sexual innuendos during sequences. It was the 1950s. Those were things you couldn't say on TV. Heart attacks would have afflicted the censors. Bankhead's erratic physical behavior was more worrisome than her words. Numerous reports claim that she occasionally wandered out in the middle of a scene, vanished into her dressing room for mysterious breaks, or made personal contact with other actors that wasn't in the script, disrupting their performances. After she almost knocked over a costly camera during a particularly tumultuous moment on set, Desilu's producers reportedly called her dangerous and unpredictable. "Never again," Lucy told Des Essay after the show ended, according to the production assistant. Working with Tula, she claimed, was like attempting to orchestrate a hurricane. Unfeasible and prone to catastrophe. Ball was especially irritated by Bankhead's actions because they had an impact on all the other actors in the play. Crew workers were working longer hours to accommodate Bankhead's unpredictable behavior while she was enjoying herself. Her interruptions were making it difficult for other actors to keep up their performances, and the production as a whole was in danger of going over budget. According to a former co-worker, Lucy had no tolerance for anyone who valued their personal amusement over the livelihoods of others. She based Desilu on respect for the production process and professionalism. Tula stood for everything she hated: talent wasted on selfish indulgence. Ball was irritated by Bankhead's disorganized lack of professionalism, but she was equally troubled by her next challenging contemporary: an inclination to act violently when irritated. That poor little brat. She's getting out of control. Just not possible. The concept. The concept. Winters, Shelley. A dress-wearing storm. From a blonde bombshell in the 1940s, Shelley Winters went on to become a well-known character actor and two-time Academy Award winner. Her unquestionable dramatic abilities won her praise from critics and a spot in Hollywood history. According to several reports, Winters gained notoriety for something very different off-camera. Her public altercations, explosive outbursts, and incapacity to manage her fury made her one of Hollywood's most feared women. Lucy, a writer who collaborated with Ball in the 1970s, described Shelley as a storm in a dress. Ball's judgment was based on numerous interactions with Winters over their careers, including a particularly illuminating event at a Hollywood fundraiser in the late 1960s. She used to comment, "You never knew what version you were going to get. Calm waters or a Category 5 hurricane." Several witnesses said that Winters became enraged because she believed she wasn't receiving enough credit during the event. The public outburst that ensued was enormous in scope, according to one attendee. Winters allegedly threw a drink, yelled at the organizers, and caused such a commotion that a number of attendees departed early. Seated at an adjacent table, Ball reportedly turned to her friend and said simply, "And that's why I declined when they asked if I wanted to sit with Shell." Reports of Winters' attitude of industry professionals behind the scenes were even more troubling than her public behavior. During a project session, she allegedly hurled a drink at a Desilu executive who proposed a small script change. A former producer who saw the incident said, "She didn't just disagree, she erupted." The unfortunate man was wearing her cocktail one minute, and the next they were discussing a scene in a casual discussion. Lucy was incensed at the executive's humiliation in front of his team as well as the disrespect. Ball was annoyed by Winters' actions since they frequently appeared planned rather than genuinely out of control. According to several onlookers, Winters' emotional reactions were actually tactical, as her outbursts usually happened when she wasn't getting her way or when she wasn't receiving enough attention. According to the author, Lucy had a theory about Shell. She thought Shelley had discovered early on that if she caused enough trouble, people would eventually give in to her demands in order to put an end to the drama. Although Lucy detested manipulation in general, she found that type to be especially obvious and irritating. Ball kept up a professional contact with Winter, including attending some of the same events, even if she privately disliked her actions. Friends said Ball's strategy was straightforward. "I always make sure there's someone between us and maintain a safe distance." Ball was worried by Winter's emotional instability, but she was even more troubled by her next enemy: intentional brutality masquerading as sensual elegance. "However, I feel safer with my feet in the soil and terrified in shoes." Gardner, Ava. She was deemed seductive by Hollywood. Lucy thought she was barbaric. One of the most stunning women to ever appear on screen was Ava Gardner. During Hollywood's heyday, this gorgeous actress became a worldwide sex icon thanks to her exotic appearance and seductive demeanor. She was even more mysterious because of her tumultuous connections with guys like Howard Hughes and Frank Sinatra. Those who knew Lucille Ball said that beneath the glitzy exterior was a lady capable of astounding brutality, especially to those she considered unworthy of her attention. Ball's old friend, Lucy, thought Ava was one of the meanest people in Hollywood, disclosed. Based on several interactions over their employment at MGM and beyond, Ball famously remarked, "Ava doesn't just burn bridges. She dances on the ashes and laughs while they're still smoldering." Gardner gained notoriety for her public reprimands, unreasonable expectations, and enjoyment of the discomfort of her aides, makeup artists, and other support workers, according to multiple stories. According to a former studio worker, Lucy saw Ava bring a young wardrobe assistant to tears because her garment had been steam-ironed too much. Lucy was standing close by and was so horrified that she later invited the girl to her dressing room and told her not to take it personally. The poor girl was trying to make up and apologize when Ava glanced at her and said, "Don't bother. You can't fix incompetence with more incompetence." A purported incident in the mid-1960s in which Gardner allegedly called her a washed-up clown at an industry function was what infuriated Ball the most. Several witnesses said that Gardner, who appeared indifferent or possibly hoping that word would reach Ball, made the remark loud enough to be heard. Lucy wasn't bothered by the insult itself, her pal clarified. She was secure in her success. What disgusted her was the casual cruelty, the idea that Ava would try to hurt someone simply because she could. This incident apparently confirmed Ball's existing opinion that Gardner's beautiful exterior masked an ugly spirit. According to those close to Ball, she told a friend, Ava doesn't just burn bridges, she dances on the ashes. What Ball found particularly troubling about Gardner was how the industry continued to enable her behavior because of her extraordinary beauty. A situation Ball found both predictable and depressing. Lucy used to say that if Ava had been born plain, she would have had to develop a personality, the friend recalled. Instead, her looks meant she never had to be kind, considerate, or even interesting. And after decades of that privilege, she'd lost the ability to be any of those things. While Gardner's deliberate cruelty disturbed Ball, her final and perhaps most surprising nemesis was someone much closer to home, her own co-star. We can identify ourselves. We can. Sure. Well, Vivian Vance, the friendship that survived the wounds. This might be the most shocking name on Lucille Ball's list. After all, Ball and Vivian Vance eventually developed a close friendship that lasted until Vance's death in 1979. Their characters Lucy Ricardo and Ethel Mertz created one of television's most beloved female friendships. But according to numerous sources close to both women, the early years of their relationship were far from friendly, marked by jealousy, insecurity, and genuine dislike that occasionally erupted into heated confrontations. The friendship between Lucy and Vivian was real, but so were the wounds, revealed a former writer who worked on I Love Lucy during its early seasons. They fought like sisters, which means they fought dirty and knew exactly where to aim. The problems began almost immediately after Vance was cast as Ethel. According to multiple accounts, Ball initially worried that Vance, at 42, only 2 years older than Ball, but playing a significantly older character, was too attractive for the role. This concern reportedly led to the infamous contractual clause requiring Vance to remain overweight throughout the series, a condition that understandably created resentment from the very beginning of their professional relationship. Vivian felt humiliated, explained a friend who knew both actresses. Here she was getting the biggest break of her career, and the star was essentially saying, "You need to be less attractive or you're fired." It was a terrible way to start a working relationship. The tension wasn't one-sided. According to several sources, Vance could be equally cutting toward Ball, particularly in the early years of the show. She reportedly referred to Ball as that tough old broad and complained about her controlling nature on set. One particularly heated argument allegedly occurred when Vance felt Ball was deliberately drawing focus during one of her few spotlight moments in an episode. Vivian stormed into Lucy's dressing room after rehearsal and accused her of scene stealing. Recalled a crew member who witnessed the aftermath. She called Lucy controlling, jealous, and old. Lucy fired back that Vivian should be grateful she had a job at all. It got ugly fast. What makes this relationship different from the others on Ball's list is that it eventually evolved into genuine friendship. As both women matured and the show continued its successful run, mutual respect gradually replaced the initial animosity. They realized they were stronger together than apart, explained the friend. Lucy came to appreciate Vivian's talent and loyalty, and Vivian recognized that Lucy's perfectionism was about making the best show possible, not about control for its own sake. By the 1970s, the two had developed a close bond that lasted until Vance's death from bone cancer in 1979. Ball was devastated by the loss, demonstrating how completely their relationship had transformed from its difficult beginnings. Lucy never forgot how Vivian called her controlling, jealous, and old, said a longtime friend who knew both women. But she also never forgot how Vivian supported her when many Hollywood people shunned her during her divorce from Des Essey. Both the camaraderie and the injuries they caused to one another were genuine. What Hollywood's actual character is shown by Lucille Ball's list of adversaries. Lucille Ball's personal thoughts on these 9 challenging women. Behind the meticulously preserved exterior of glitz and sisterhood, the lives of Joan Crawford, Judy Garland, Zassia Gabor, Betty Davis, Barbara Stanwyck, Tula Bankhead, Shelley Winters, Ava Gardner, and Vivian Vance provide a unique, unvarnished look into Hollywood's actuality. According to a longtime dissolute producer, Lucy witnessed everything. Every female star had to pass through her at some point because she was the first woman to lead a big studio. She could tell who was acting and who wasn't. Ball's evaluations are especially useful because she had no motive to fabricate or exaggerate unfavorable tales. Ball was at the very top of the entertainment business, not some sour-faced employee with a grudge or a tabloid reporter. She stood to lose everything if her candor harmed possible business partnerships, and she had nothing to gain by disparaging these celebrities. According to her former producer, Lucy had no intention of creating enemies. The exact opposite. She desired the success of each show. She didn't like people because they had made it difficult for her to dislike them. Ball had a unique viewpoint on celebrity society because of her dual roles as a studio executive and performer. She saw celebrities as both a boss and a peer for decades, which gave her a dual viewpoint that increased the weight of her personal opinions. The distinction Ball made between women who were simply difficult and those she deemed actually problematic is perhaps the most illuminating. She put up with uneasiness, quirkiness, and even a little ego. It came with the area of celebrity to comprehend these. Cruelty, particularly to people in a position of less authority, was something she could not tolerate. According to her lifelong friend, Lucy had a straightforward test. How did they handle the makeup artists, pages, and helpers who provided her with all the information she required about a character? Many of Ball's personal beliefs have been supported by more general disclosures about these celebrities in the years since her death in 1989. The accusations made by Christina Crawford against her mother, Joan. Multiple sources have confirmed reports about Ava Gardner's treatment of staff members and Judy Garland's unreliability. This implies that Ball wasn't merely passing judgment. She was seeing real character defects that the public was being kept unaware of by Hollywood's publicity machine. Ball's list's most disturbing finding is how well the studio structure shielded these celebrities even though industry insiders were aware of their actions. Before social media and cancel culture, celebrities could keep up impeccable public personas while acting reprehensibly in private, safe in the knowledge that the media, networks, and studios all had a stake in keeping them marketable. According to a former Delu writer, a single cell phone video can now ruin a career. The narrative would never leave the building as long as they sold tickets or drew sponsors back then, even if someone reduced an assistant to tears. Ball's candid opinions are a helpful reminder that our cultural icons have always been flawed, complex people as we nostalgically recall Hollywood's heyday. Behind their well-constructed public personalities, they can be genuinely unsettling at times, inspiring at others, and disappointing at others. The camera doesn't just add 10 pounds, it adds a halo that isn't always deserved, Lucy recounted her longtime producer having said. Making people laugh wasn't her strongest suit. It was revealing the truth beneath the facade. We appreciate you viewing this examination of Lucille Ball's most challenging peers. If you thought this exploration of television's